All right, we go again. This time, the Ret Paladin. Oh baby, I love this class. My frame rate kind of chugging.
Let the bloodshed begin!
Let's see, we should press these buttons, press that button. So the Ret Paladin's got how do I put this? It's a kind of a simple class to play, but it does plenty good damage.
Is that all? I thought we were in for a show! What a disappointment! How unexpected! It seems
So the basics of the Ret Paladin is you have 3 main abilities to generate holy power. So Crusader Strike is kind of a weak hit with a short cooldown. There's Blade of Justice, which does more damage and it's a longer cooldown. But specifically, Blade of Justice generates 2 holy power instead of just 1. And then you have Judgment, which throws a thing at the enemies. And that one also makes enemies take like 20% more damage from your next holy power ability. So they're generally priority is to use Blade of Justice first, because that one gives you the 2 holy power, and then there's also a mechanic that resets the cooldown on it. So yeah, so you're using those 3 abilities mainly to generate holy power, and then you have a few options for spending holy power. One of them's a heal, a Word of Glory, which it's a decent heal, but you'd much rather spend your holy power on damage. Hit the wrong button there. Yeah, so you'd much rather spend your holy power on damage. So there's a single target one called Templar's Verdict. And then there's an AoE one called Divine Storm. So in the dungeons, in these sort of situations, you're gonna see a whole lot of Divine Storms, but single target, you generally would use Templar's Verdict, except there's a couple ones that sort of replace Templar's Verdict. So I have a talent, gives you this Justicar's Vengeance ability. So, let me press some buttons to do some damage here. Whoops.
That's something good.
So yeah, I got a Templar's Verdict sort of replacement, I guess you could say. Which it's very similar to Templar's Verdict, but it also heals you. And also it does 50% more damage if the target is stunned. So, I don't know why exactly they didn't just make it like a passive thing that affects Templar's Verdict instead of making it an entirely separate ability. But because they made it a separate ability, the passives, the talents that affect Templar's Verdict, a lot of them, they don't affect Justicar's Vengeance. So, kind of annoying, but that's how it is. I'm surprised our tank is doing this much damage. I don't know if the Demonology Warlock is bugged or something, but the Demonology Warlocks have been doing crazy damage. I mean, see by the HP, he's probably got higher gear than me. Yeah. I'm currently, with some pieces taken off, I'm at 199 eye level. He's at 227. So you'd expect him to be doing more damage than me, but yeah, there does seem to be something going on with the Demon Hunter, or I mean the Demonology Warlock, with them doing crazy damage. Like, I'm not just saying that from this, I'm saying this from multiple times. Yeah, so that's kind of your main abilities, and then you get a big cooldown ability. Well, it's not a big cooldown ability, it's a 45-second cooldown ability called Wake of Ashes, and that does like giga damage in a cone in front of you. So that's awesome. And it also stuns undead, so in specific dungeons like this one, when there's a lot of undead enemies, it's pretty useful. We're waiting for the guys that died to come back over here. I wasn't thinking I might have been able to res them, but oh well. And then I guess we're going.
Let your fears consume you. There is no escape for you.
I'm waiting for
Relinquish your soul.
another thing to come up, so I can do this.
There is no escape for you. Let your fears consume you. I will rip your soul from your body.
I'm glad the boss isn't targeting me, so I can just do lots of damage.
Wither in my grasp. Let your fears relinquish your soul. This does not end here.
Another trial down! Looks like we might have some real contenders here!
Yeah. So the Ret Paladin, like overall, it plays very similar to Shadowlands and BFA. Nothing too crazy new. I think this exorcism ability is new.
New challenges. We'll see.
But it might have been like a
Let your weapon speak for you.
Shadowlands Covenant ability or something, and I forgot. But yeah, when you really want to put in the big damage, like your damage without it is perfectly fine. But when you really want to go to the big damage is when you're using Avenging Wrath, which gives you more damage. But also there's a talent which is very easy to get, which accidentally used the wrong trinket there. But the talent that's really easy to get, it also gives you more trying to press the right buttons to do lots of damage here. Hard to do that when I talk. Gives you more crit chance, like 25% crit chance or something. As well during Avenging Wrath, so so yeah, that's nice. I was a little slow to get out of that circle. I tanked the other one with Shield of Vengeance, which absorbs damage, and then it does damage
You had best make this
based on the amount of damage it absorbs. Guess we're not gonna get the PvP this time.
That was a good. challenges have conquered the trials and advanced to
So yeah, Shield of Vengeance is really good. You get it here on the tree.
Central Chamber. It's time to begin the main event.
Shit, we're already the last boss?
Soldiers of Maldraxxus! Are you ready for some carnage? A rising stars now face the longest reigning champion the Theater of Pain has ever known! Mordretha, the Endless Empress!
At long last, a worthy contender! Behold my power and despair! My magic reaches beyond your mortal ken. Reality turns its ire against you. My magic.
My Avenging Wrath wasn't quite up in time for this boss.
Things must end.
Did we even get any loot?
Mordretha has been defeated! I can hardly believe
Oh
it!
well.
All hail the new champions of the arena!
Isn't really where I wanted to be to talk about damage rotation and stuff. So let's fly over to some enemies.
The houses are launching coordinated assaults. We need their battle plans if we are to mount a defense.
So yeah. The general playstyle of the Ret Paladin hasn't really changed, and I'm fine with that. I loved it in BFA and in Shadowlands was generally fine. They had a couple of Covenant abilities which were a little ridiculous, but oh, I forgot to say at the start of the video, we are not no conduits. I'm Necrolord Covenant, but obviously I didn't use the Fleshcraft or the Vanquisher's Hammer. Not even on my bars. Vanquisher's Hammer is actually basically built into the functionality of it is built into this talent down here, which we'll talk about in a bit. The Divine Toll is a little bit different from the Covenant ability one. The Covenant ability Divine Toll was like this massive single target burst potential where it threw a bunch of judgments at the same target. Whereas this Divine Toll throws hammers at multiple targets. So it's better to use it essentially when there's multiple targets than a single target. You'll get more damage out of it. Yeah. So, yeah, let's talk talents. In the general Paladin tree, everybody's gonna get Avenging Wrath. And your interrupt is over here, so if you want to not be bad, not be bad at the game, you're gonna get that. You're probably gonna get Divine Steed for your movement, and well, you have to get it to get to Avenging Wrath anyways. So everybody's gonna get that. I recommend Divine Steed has 2 charges. The crit chance increased by 4% over here is good. The rest of this stuff, not as important. I do get the dispel poison and disease. I don't like blessing of sacrifice. I do like blessing of protection. As far as there's times where you can just prevent a wipe from or at least a death from happening with it, so it's good stuff. Let's see, this other stuff isn't terribly important. I get the cooldown on Divine Shield, Lay of Hands. Oh, you do have to pick these Blessing of Freedom and Lay of Hands. They're definitely worth picking. Lay of Hands is the really big heal one. So yeah, this talent's good. This one, I love this talent. Holy Power abilities have a 15% chance to make your next Holy Power ability free and deal 15% increased damage and healing. So when you have that talent, you'll get a little thing on your screen when you have a free Holy Power ability. Let's see if we can get it to show up here. There it is. So it's that yellow thing on the top of your screen. So I have no Holy Power right now, but I can use a Holy Power ability, and then it's gone. So that helps you spam lots of Divine Storms in those big packs and deal tons of AoE damage. Shit! Already fucked up the damage thing. Let's look at the damage meter first before we do anything more. So you can see about 20% of my damage was this Divine Storm. So that's your AoE Holy Power spender. Justicar's Vengeance is a single target Holy Power spender, which I think I mentioned earlier already, where it's a lot like Templar's Verdict, but it also heals you. It does like 10% more damage than Templar's Verdict also, and it does 50% more damage against a stunned enemy. You don't really, for dungeons, you don't really come across doing the extra damage to a stun target that often. If there's like a trash pack and there's one enemy left, then you might Hammer of Justice it, and then your Justice card's Vengeance will do more damage. But generally, I don't use Hammer of Justice very much for dungeons. Since you do get stuns on undead with Wake of Ashes and also with Exorcism, you can get extra damage on it from those, but usually you're using those more in multi-target situations, in which case you're going to be spending your Holy Power on Divine Storm and not Justicar's Vengeance. So it's so yeah, the extra damage to stun targets doesn't really help you that much as far as dungeons goes. I'm sure it's great in like PvP though. But let's get back to finishing talking about the tree over here. So there's a thing of Dusk and Dawn, which seems like it would be good when you reach Holy Power. 5 Holy Power, then you get 6% damage on healing for 15 seconds. And you reach 0 Holy Power, then you get damage taken reduced. So you could have a very high uptime of 6% damage and healing. So it sounds good. And then there's also a passive that makes it even better. But I don't like the talents you have to, the points you have to spend to get to it. These are like healing based talents over here. So I haven't tried going for that. Instead, what I'm going for mainly down here is Seraphim, which I don't really use it as much as I should. It's a 45-second cooldown, but it spends 3 holy power to give you 8% haste, crit, versatility, and 13% mastery. So this ends up being like at least 30% more damage for 15 seconds. So as long as you're able to keep hitting enemies during this time, it's definitely worth using. It's probably worth using if you get like, I don't know, 5 to 7 seconds worth out of it. So if you can keep hitting stuff for at least half the duration of it, you want to use that basically. Ideally, of course, you use it early so you get the full duration out of it. This other one adds to your Avenging Wrath, and it makes you do AoE little explosion every time you spend holy power. So it's not so great in single target. It's good for AoE, but I typically am not using my Avenging Wrath in AoE. I'm usually using it on bosses. So that's why I'm not taking that talent. If you take this talent, you really want to use Avenging Wrath on like big trash packs. But because Avenging Wrath lasts 20 seconds, it's got to be like a really big trash pack that you can't kill super quick. So it might be better in like a fortified Mythic Plus dungeon type of thing, where the trash mobs don't die as fast. But yeah, that's basically about it for the regular tree. There's only a few super important ones, like I said, which is you get free extra holy power spenders, you get Avenging Wrath, you get a couple things up here, and you get Seraphim. Now as far as the Retribution tree goes, the left side of the tree is about Judgment. That's your throwing hammer thing. And the right side of the tree's got some Blade of Justice stuff. So they're both fine. Ultimately, they're both single target damage abilities, except the Judgment stuff, because Divine Throw will throw judgments at multiple targets, you kind of get more use out of the Judgment stuff if you're using Divine Toll. So yeah, it's kind of weird. But yeah, there's lots of good talents in the Ret Paladin tree. It's not some of the other classes and specs in the game have a lot of things talents that I think are underpowered and you want to dodge. In the Ret Paladin tree, there's plenty of good ones. This one, for example, is bad though. Judgment has a 25% chance to throw a second hammer, dealing an additional 509 holy damage to the target. It's a 25% chance to do 509 extra damage. It's not a 25% chance to throw another Judgment, which does additional damage. It's just another mini hammer. So it's like it adds on average 100 20 something damage to your judgment, which is less than 10% of a damage increase to a judgment. So it's like, that's not so great. Judgment is my third highest damage ability. That's mostly because of Divine Toll. Throws out judgments. It doesn't show up as a separate thing in the damage meter. And also the Divine Toll judgments deal 100% increased damage. So yeah, that talent's not that great. You can get 8% judgment damage points over here. I picked those over that one. So that's an example of a talent I think is underwhelming. But yeah, let's talk about the big important ones. First of all, well, I don't know what's really the best thing to say. First of all, very important to get are Blade of Justice generates 1 additional holy power. So by default, super low level, it'll be only generates 1 holy power. You want it generating 2 holy power so that you can use more holy power spenders. So obviously that's an important point. Crusader Strike has 2 charges. I think is kind of important, not as important. Let's see. This one's important. Is Crusader Strike has a 15% chance to make your next Divine Storm free and deal 25% additional damage. So we saw Divine Storm in the dungeon is my top damage because it's big AoE damage that you can use quite a lot. And part of that is because we get free Divine Storms from Crusader Strike. So the there isn't a little thing on your screen last I checked. I think there used to be when you get a free Divine Storm, but there isn't anymore. So this is the icon for it. I have a little weak aura thing to show it. That's the other one, but yeah, free Divine Storms are awesome, so definitely get that one. So because of that, we also have holy power abilities have a 15% chance to make your next holy power ability free. So you have 2 ways to get free Divine Storms, basically. So that's awesome. I've mentioned already, Shield of Vengeance is good. It prevents you from taking damage and also deals damage. So sometimes you might use it just to stand in a mechanic to let it hit you, just so that does more damage. It's really awesome. There's a passive Art of War, which has your auto attacks have a chance to reset your Blade of Justice cooldown. That's really important, and I don't think you probably can't even skip that because you have to get a certain number of points to get to the next tier type of thing. So you probably can't even skip that technically, but I'm mentioning it because you definitely want the point over here so that Art of War triggers more often. And then you also, because it's a 12% chance, it's just like a fixed 12% chance. That means anything that increases your auto attack speed is going to make it trigger more often. So that's why I really like the Zeal talent down here. This other one reduces the cooldown of Crusader Strike and gives blah blah blah, consumes less holy power. This is probably decent. I haven't tried it, but it's probably decent. Mainly because the Crusader Strike has the chance to give you free Divine Storms. But also just consuming your Holy Power spenders, consuming less Holy Power is also good. But the thing is, out of your Holy Power generators, like I mentioned earlier, the Blade of Justice generates 2 Holy Power, so I generally prioritize that the most. And then out of Crusader Strike and Judgment, Crusader Strike does have that, was it 15% chance to make your next Divine Storm free? But the damage of Crusader Strike is significantly lower than Judgment. And Judgment makes your enemy take increased Holy Power damage. So usually I use Judgment. If they're both off cooldown, I'll use Judgment before I use Crusader Strike. I'm not entirely sure if that's the correct play or not. But usually that's how I do it. So I'm often not casting Crusader Strike on cooldown. And part of that is also because we're using GCDs on our free Holy Power spenders that we get every now and then as well. So Crusader Strike's already on a 5.1 second cooldown. So additional, that's with a certain amount of haste. 17% haste, I guess. So yeah, additional cooldown reduction on it isn't that important when you consider that you're not really using Crusader Strike on cooldown anyways. So yeah, that's why we're going Zeal is for more Art of War procs. I've mentioned this a couple times already, but Justicar's Vengeance is what I'm using. As you can see, for single target damage, Holy Power spender. So yeah, I'm using that. And then let's actually look at healing done. So you can see that was actually my top healing ability is Justicar's Vengeance. Not that I had a need to heal a lot. So if we actually were to look at overhealing done, 86% overhealing. So it could have done another 500k healing to me if I was actually injured the whole time, basically. So on a more difficult dungeon, then you'll get a lot more use out of that healing. But yeah, I like that. This one, Divine Storm, predicts a thing in front of you for 20% of Divine Storm's damage. So it shoots out this little tornado thing in front of you. It's basically it's 20% more Divine Storm damage. The hitbox is different because Divine Storm's around you, whereas that shoots out in front of you. So if you have enemies like behind you, then it won't hit them. But at the same time, if there's enemies farther away, that'll hit them, whereas your Divine Storm won't hit them. So you'll see in the damage meters, there's Divine Storm at 20% damage, but there's also a Divine Storm farther down there at 4% of my damage. So so really I got actually 24% of my damage is Divine Storm and not 20% of my damage. Because Divine Storm's your top damage thing, 20% more Divine Storm damage, roughly, is really good. For dungeons, it's just like a raid boss that doesn't spawn ads, then it's like, okay, you won't get that talent. But for dungeons, definitely get that talent. There's a couple healing ones over here, which I like Selfless Healer, where your Holy Power Spenders give you instant cast empowered Flash of Light. So I have a weak aura for that, where where it builds up this little bar, which is yellow at first, and then once you've got 4 of them, your Flash of Light is... Oh shit, that's a lot of guys here. So yeah, you see it, the bar of my weak aura goes up and then it turns green at 4 stacks. That means you have an instant cast empowered flash heal. So I like that talent, sort of. The problem is, you don't really want to spend the global cooldown to cast a flash of light, even though it's free and instant cast. You don't really want to spend that amount of time when you could be doing more damage. So yeah, I wouldn't. I don't use it all that much. The other talent here for Lay of Hands cooldown reduction and Word of Glory healing is probably better. But still, I never used Word of Glory that whole dungeon. It's really an emergency kind of thing, because you really want to spend your holy power on damage, not healing. That's your job, is damage. So, yeah, that's those talents over there. Down here, Wake of Ashes is our giga damage cone thing, which, as you saw when it crits just now, that's like giga fucking damage. That's your highest damaging ability. So it's fucking great. 45-second cooldown. But because of the 45-second cooldown, it's not as high on the damage meters. I think it was like 4th, but I used it a couple times just now against those 10 dudes or whatever it was. So it's the damage meter thing. I already messed it up basically. But yeah, it's giga damage, and yeah, so because it's so awesome, there's 2 talents here on the left of it. One of them replaces it with a holy power spender on a cooldown, where it's basically the same, but it does less damage. So you would use that on cooldown over Divine Storm. So it probably works out to be a reasonable choice, but I'd prefer to just only, when I want to do AoE damage, press Divine Storm and not have to check, oh, is this other one off cooldown or not? So I prefer this other talent, which Art of War has a chance to reset the cooldown of Wake of Ashes instead of Blade of Justice. So the Art of War, it like makes this noise. I don't really know how to describe it. But it makes this noise when it procs. Let's see if we can get it to proc here. But you'll also see like these yellow things on the sides. And those are technically not from Art of War itself, but they're an indication of a different talent, which is this one, which is that your next Blade of Justice is going to do 25% more damage. But yeah, that's the thing from the auto attacks that gives a chance to reset the Blade of Justice cooldown. So because it can reset the Wake of Ashes cooldown instead with this talent, you get more Wake of Ashes out of out of your dungeon. But because it's a cooldown reset, you only get value out of it if Wake of Ashes is on cooldown. So you gotta use Wake of Ashes as much as you can to really get use out of that. So we can look in the auras section of the details damage meter, and we can go down to here. So we see Art of War down here, proc 19 times. This is the dungeon and these monsters I've been fighting afterwards. And compared to down here, Ashes to Dust, Art of War has a chance to reset the Wake of Ashes cooldown. So that's happened 7 times. So it happened at least once after the dungeon. But yeah, got like 5 times or so during the dungeon where we got the Wake of Ashes cooldown reset. So that's pretty good. I like that talent. Exorcism, I think, is a really good talent. Design wise, I don't think it's like overpowered, but it's a damage over time where if you use it on an enemy in the in your consecration, then it's an AoE damage over time. Like it spreads to the other enemies, but it also has a upfront damage component. So it's like it's worth pressing in single target and it's worth pressing in AoE. So I really like that, where it's like you always use it type of thing. So yeah, I like that talent. Now it doesn't generate or spend holy power. So there's times where you wouldn't want to use it. Like if you were to take the Final Reckoning talent, which I definitely took in BFA and Shadowlands. Your holy spend, it makes your holy power spenders deal 50% more damage. But what that means is during that 8 seconds. But what that means is you only want to cast holy power spenders if at all possible. In which case your free holy power spenders that you can get from the procs is really nice. But also if you're not using a holy power spender, you want to be pressing your holy power generators, particularly Blade of Justice, for 2 holy power as opposed to the other ones. Generate holy power so that you can spend it. But yeah, because of all that, since exorcism doesn't spend or generate holy power, that's a time where during Final Reckoning you definitely would not press exorcism. But apart from that, yeah, pretty much use it on cooldown. I'm not very good at using it on cooldown, so it doesn't come up on here as a whole lot of damage. But for only really taking 1 point, sort of, assuming you'd get this other one that has concentration, has a chance to drain holy power. Assuming you're taking that anyways, exorcism is definitely worth the point. Ashes to Ashes, when you benefit from Art of War, that's the auto attack chance to reset Blade of Justice, and with the other cooldown, the Wake of Ashes one, you get Seraphim for 4 seconds. The tooltip's wrong on here. It's actually 8% haste crit and versatility, as you can see over here. So I already like bug reported that in game, but it's only 4 seconds, but still it's basically like 30% plus damage for 4 seconds. So it's not amazing, but it's how we're getting down here to our Divine Toll and this other talent, which we'll talk about in a second. Now over here, Templar's Verdict has a chance to strike again for 10% of its damage. I really don't like that this talent is here, specifically because I'm using Justicar's Vengeance instead of Templar's Verdict, which means this talent doesn't do anything for me. And the other thing is it's a 15% chance for 10% damage per point. I can't remember if it goes to 30% chance for 10% of its damage, or it's 15% chance for 20% of its damage. But either way, if you spend 2 points in here, it gives you a grand total of 3% more damage on Templar's Verdict on average. So it's like really weak. So yeah, I don't like that. I don't like Final Verdict. So I would never get that stuff. I'm not a fan of the execution sentence style thing. This is similar to some other abilities in the game. Kind of sort of like Touch of the Magi for the Arcane Mage, where it like counts up all the damage you do to the target in a certain amount of time and then deals more damage as a percentage of that damage. I don't like that style of ability. In this case, it's only single target instead of AoE, unless you get another talent down here. But yeah, I don't like that. I do think this talent here is decent though. If you were to come down this side of the tree to get to this, but I'm not really a fan of Hand of Hindrance. It's Seems too expensive to me. I feel like it should be in the general paladin tree instead of the ret paladin tree. And then over here, the consecration, sorry, being larger and slows enemies or prevents you from being slowed type of thing. Either one of those is fine. But there's, like I said, there's so many good things in the ret paladin tree that I'm not currently taking those. So yeah, so let's look at the ones down here. I already mentioned Final Reckoning's awesome. But this one to get to it isn't is very weak. These points are very weak. And part of it is it applies to Templar's Verdict, which I'm essentially not using because I'm using Justicar's Vengeance instead. So those points kind of suck. And then let's see. Let's talk about Divine Toll first. So, like I said, it throws judgments at multiple targets, and those judgments do 100% extra damage. So it's not super amazing, but what it is great is that because they count as judgments, those judgments give you holy power. So if we were to, I want to fight 10 dudes again. Let's find like 4 of them. These guys might be too tanky. I guess this will be fine. If we go in here and get a few dudes. If we use our divine toll, it fills us up on the holy power. I guess I'll have to kill these guys now. I didn't realize I had 2 elites here. That's not ideal. I'm not sure. Okay. I used a word of glory there to stall for a bit because I was thinking I might have to wait for the forbearance of the divine shield so that I could cast lay on hands to heal myself to full health, but it ended up not being a problem. So yeah, divine toll, because it throws judgments at multiple targets, you get it'll boost up your holy power. So don't use it when you're already at high holy power. Use it when you're at low holy power so that you get use out of that properly. And then this talent for it makes it do better for a single target, basically. So that's pretty awesome. And then this talent, Judgment, empowers your next Templar's Verdict to automatically activate Divine Storm with 25% increased effectiveness. This can only occur once every 30 seconds. So like I said earlier, this is basically the same mechanic as Vanquisher's Hammer, the Necrolord Ret Paladin, the Necrolord Paladin Covenant ability, but built into Judgment instead of a separate ability. It's got the same cooldown on it. So the thing is, so I like this ability. in that we throw it there and then it puts this debuff on you that tells you it can't trigger again. But it empowers your Templar's Verdict. So if I use Templar's Verdict right now, hello? Use Templar's Verdict now, you see it also does the Divine Storm, which is great. So for single target abilities, it's like, okay, I'll use my single target damage Holy Power Spender and I get a free Divine Storm out of it. Or if there's multiple targets, then you can look at it as it's basically a slightly empowered Divine Storm with a free extra single target damage on top of it. So it's like, in either case, it's basically, it's just free extra damage. It's pretty decent. I just don't like that it's specifically to Templar's Verdict and that it doesn't work with Justicar's Vengeance. So that's the only reason I have Templar's Verdict on my bar, is because of that talent specifically. So if you saw during the dungeon, I used it several times. Let's see the total number of casts of Templar's Verdict. So I have a total of 20 casts here. I used it like once or twice here after the dungeon, of course, but yeah, it's it gives you the buff, and the buff lasts 20 seconds. So you got plenty of time to use it, but it's just got that 30-second cooldown. So if you're in the dungeon for we had a 14.5-minute dungeon here. The maximum you can get out of it is using it every 30 seconds. But you're definitely gonna use it less than that. So I could have theoretically used it like 29 times in the dungeon. But we saw I had it used it somewhere around like 18 times or something, trying to account for the times I used it after the dungeon. So yeah, it's it's hard to get the total maximum usage out of it, but it does trigger off of Judgment, and since Judgment's one of your main holy power generators, you're kind of just using that all the time anyways. So as long as you don't forget to press the Templar's Verdict because you're pressing Justicar's Vengeance instead, or you're just spamming Divine Storm because it's AoE damage, as long as you don't forget to use it, it's good. You might need to set up yourself a weak aura to remind yourself of it, because it doesn't put like a big thing on your screen like those other times to let you know it's available. So yeah, I like the talent, except that I don't like that it doesn't work with Justicar's Vengeance. I find that really irritating. It's, in some ways it's kind of a good thing though, because maybe I only want to do single target damage and I wanted to save that for, like, I needed like one more hit to kill a guy over here, and then there's a few dudes over here that I want to use that on. Then you could Justicar's Vengeance on this guy and it doesn't proc it, and then you go over here and then you Templar's Verdict to proc the free Divine Storm. So there's definitely ways where it could be beneficial that it's on a separate button, but overall I feel like it's kind of like feels overly complicated. to have to put it on a separate button like that. Yeah, that's about it for all the talents. For the Ret Paladin, as we saw, still plays pretty much the same. You just, for a single target damage, you're generating holy power and then spending it all on Justicar's Vengeance, assuming you have that. Otherwise, Templar's Verdict. And the Exorcism button's worth pressing a single target. Wake of Ashes is worth pressing in single target. Like single target bosses, I should say. Don't use Wake of Ashes if it's like the last monster in a trash pack type of thing. Because it's better to, in that situation, to just save it for the next trash pack. But yeah, Divine Toll's great for dealing good damage and generating lots of holy power. Avenging Wrath, and you should use... I was using this versatility trinket, not the optimal thing. Generally mastery gives you extra holy power extra holy damage, and holy damage works out to be about half your total damage. So because of that mastery, the percentage here on the mastery gives you a much higher percentage per point to account for that. But yeah, usually mastery is kind of what you want if you want to do big damage during your Avenging Wraths. But yeah, this is better than nothing. But yeah, big damage buffs and Seraphim big damage buff. And yeah, just spend that holy power and you'll do lots of good damage. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. Yeah, overall Ret Paladin does good damage. Divine Steed isn't nearly as good as some of the other classes' movement abilities. So if you got a dungeon group that's really zooming with like a demon hunters and monks and warriors, you might have trouble keeping up, just getting from one trash pack to the next type of thing. But yeah, overall the damage of the Ret Paladin is quite solid, and they have much better defensive options than those other classes, through the Shield of Vengeance, through Blessing of Protection, through Divine Shield, through Lay on Hands. You've got like all kinds of defensive buttons to make sure things don't get too far out of hand. So yeah, Ret Paladin was good to did feel good to play before, and it still feels good to play. I'm not I don't got too much complaints. The main things I think is just the Templar's Verdict. The talents that apply to Templar's Verdict don't apply to Justicar's Vengeance, even though it's essentially fills the same role as a 3 holy power spender ability, which deals a bunch of single target damage at melee distance. It's like, why do those need to be separate things? And why don't the talents apply to Justicar's Vengeance as well? So, I don't know. A little bit of annoyance, but overall, the class is definitely still fun to play. Especially when those procs for the free holy power spenders come up, and you're just like, Divine Storm, Divine Storm, Divine Storm, Divine Storm, Divine Toll, Divine Storm, Wake of Ashes, Divine Storm. It just it's awesome. Yeah, I'll end the video here. We're talking too long.